Catherine Moreau is a reporter with Radio-Canada, and she has been looking into this, and she's in studio with her report. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So first, tell us a bit more about that number, 30% fewer trips further south.
Yes, this is for Canadians. So this is between August 2024 and 2025. There was a decrease of travelers to the U.S. from Canada, and this comes from StatsCan. And there's another thing that's quite interesting in terms of movements across the border. One thing that's only happened 3 times in the last 20 years is that the number of Americans traveling to Canada was higher this year than the number of Canadians going south. So I spoke about this data to Laurie Wilkinson. She's the Canada Research Chair in Migration Futures, and she's a professor of sociology and criminology at the University of Manitoba. And she highlighted another data point that we can listen to now.
We've increased our vacations internationally outside of the United States by about almost 10%. So again, like many people can't afford to travel internationally, but for those who could have a choice, many of them are traveling to Asia or Africa or Europe instead of the United States.
So this is really for Canada, but if you want to look really into the Manitoba side of things, there's a really fun website for those data nerds out there. You can look into the data from the U.S. Transportation Department, and I really looked at the data from the Pembina border crossing, and we were talking about summer vacation. So if you compare August for every year from 96 to 2025, there's really a drop in 2025. For instance, the highest number of travelers that were passengers on personal vehicles the maximum was in 2012, and this was 125,000 people that crossed the border.
Okay.
In 2025...
Vehicles or people?
People.
People, okay.
And this year it was 52,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite the drop. So it's a drop of over 40%. And it's even more interesting when you think about the fact that between 2012 and 2025, Winnipeg's population has grown by about 150,000 people. So according to Professor Wilkinson, there's several factors leading to fewer Canadians traveling to the U.S. A few are obvious ones, which you just talked about, being the cost of living and the political tensions between Canada and the U.S. Another interesting tidbit is that if you look at this data from Pembina, there is also a 29-year low in February, which is really when Trump ramped up the talk on tariffs and his threat to annex Canada, make us a 51st state. This really struck a nerve with a lot of Canadians, according to Wilkinson.
Many Canadians were heartbroken, when this 51st state rhetoric started being not just mentioned, but repeated over and over again. And I think the average Canadian, really feels disappointed, but also angry. Like, the threat of annexation, that's not a joking matter, because countries are under the threat of annexation right now and have been in the past. And so, it's deeply offensive.
So you spoke, as I alluded to some Winnipeggers who about traveling to the U.S. What did they share with you about, how they're thinking about going or not?
So it was unanimous. No one was traveling to the U.S. And the one thing, it's always fun as a journalist to be surprised by what people will tell you. Mm-hmm. And I was expecting because I would ask them why they were choosing not to go to the U.S. And I was expecting something like a bit more of a militant stance of I don't want to encourage Trump, etc. And what came up was really the sentiment of fear in all the answers. So we can listen to a few people I met on Monday in St. Boniface. They speak English, I swear. So here we go. Listen to those.
I don't agree with everything that's going on there, but also just exchange. Like, it's more expensive than shopping in Canada now, so. I feel safer being in Canada than being in the United States right now. Mainly because of the laws that are in the U.S., guns, all of the crimes that happen right now.
I'm not interested in this, in this moment to travel to U.S. I'm it scares me a lot.
This is because of the politics there. It's really scary because me as a minority, I feel like I can be arrested anytime and then disappear.
You're right. That sentiment of fear, and I'm curious. I'm whether or not it's shifted over the year. Right, that sort of elbows up patriotism. What was going on in the U.S., how closely Canadians were watching, those that became fearful, must have been watching a lot of what's going on there.
Well, even as a journalist, I had to cross the border this week. And
Yep.
I have to say that those thoughts came up where you're like, well, how am I going to be received? Are they going to ask for my prints or
Yeah.
these photos? And should I clean up my cell phone? Not that I
Yeah.
have anything compromising, I think. But
I've thought about it.
But it's all these little thoughts that pop up the night before you're going to travel. And it made total sense.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I, as a journalist, same thing. And I would have never had those thoughts before, just personally speaking for a moment. Now, you did go, though. You went down to Grand Forks to see what people there think about this. And what did you see and hear there?
So my cameraman and I were looking around the day of. We were there for about 24 hours, and there were very few Canadian plates. Actually, we only saw one plus our own, and we did talk to a business owner and someone at the Chamber of Commerce, and there was a report that was made recently about the fact that fewer Canadians are traveling to the U.S. So I could find one figure on the Department of Commerce from North Dakota. So just for February and March, the losses due to the decrease of Canadian visitors coming to North Dakota was equal to more than 8 million. So this is just for 2 months. So it is hitting the bottom line of many businesses, and that's in Minnesota and North Dakota, because some of you might not know, but Grand Forks is just separated by a river with Minnesota. So I did meet a restaurant owner in East Grand Forks, which is in Minnesota. And he had to say that he had seen a decline over the last actually couple of years, and he found it really unfortunate. We can hear now about his reaction when he sees Canadians.
I get really excited when we have a Canadian because I feel like we haven't seen them a lot. So I try to make a point to tell them that we want them to keep coming back and bring their friends, because that's a huge part of our business is Canadians traveling down. So yeah, we miss it.
So that's Casey Morin, the owner of the Blue Moose Bar and Grill in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, as Catherine said. I think a lot of us are trying to answer this question, but is it a blip, or is this trend of Canadians going south less often going to continue?
Well, I did have to ask that to Professor Wilkinson. She doesn't think it's a permanent situation, but obviously it's very hard these days to predict the future, what's going to come up even next week. So here are her thoughts on this.
Because there are legitimate reasons to go to the United States, right? They're our number one trading partner. So of course, business is going to want to go down there, and all of us have friends and family there, and that can only stop, or we can only stop traveling for so long, because the heart wants us to go. So I don't think this is a long-term thing unless our relationship gets worse.
It's interesting when she said your heart wants to go, and whether it's family or friends. And then you also hear people that will say, well, I had a trip planned, or the kids have a hockey tournament. I mean, there's many reasons that people go. So every family will have to make the decision for themselves, and we'll see. Thanks for your report this morning.
My pleasure.
That is Catherine Méro in live in our CBC studio, reporter with Radio-Canada. So if you want to share with us how your travel plans have been affected or not to the States, why do you go? Or why aren't you going? 788-3205. You can call our listener line, 788-3205.